What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Spill the Tea. Today we're talking about why so many people say, I've done everything right, therapy, medication, years of work, and I still feel stuck. This isn't about blaming any kind of medication. It's about understanding what actually creates the change and what doesn't. If something isn't working, especially like if it's not working on its own, adding more of it is usually not really going to fix the problem. A lot of people will say, I've been in therapy for many years, or, I've been on medication for 15 plus years, or I've been switching a lot of different medications between the two, and I've been doing everything that I have been told. And, a lot of them, they feel exhausted. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Treatment doesn't work if it's only aimed at symptoms instead of the patterns. Medication is absolutely incredibly helpful. Therapy is absolutely very helpful. But neither of them will replace, the level of awareness that's around your nervous system that's being activated. Medication and therapy are incredibly helpful, but they don't ever actually replace, the responsibility that's behind some of the behavior that you may be exhibiting. And medication and therapy are absolutely helpful tools to use, but they do not replace, learning how your body responds under stressful situations. If your system is still living in a survival mode, no pill can teach it how to be safe. And that's not because you're failing, that's just simple biology. This is where a lot of the times medication gets misunderstood. Medication can help turn the volume down. And for some people, yes, that's absolutely necessary. But turning that volume down doesn't teach your nervous system how to respond, when life turns that volume back up. If one teaches you what to do with activation, medication just makes their reaction a little quieter, not different at all. When you live with trauma, any kind of symptoms, PTSD, depression, any of that stuff, your brain kind of only learns one core rule, and that's, that danger is around you at all corners of the world. So even when the mind can understand that, your body, it can't stand down. It's still going to react that way. And that's why you'll also hear a lot of people say, I know better, but I'm still having trouble reacting to certain situations. I'm still on medication, but like I still feel like I'm always on edge. Or, I've been doing the work, I've been going to therapy, and I've been listening to my therapist or my counselor, but I don't feel different. And because having that level of insight, doesn't really regulate the nervous system, but practicing the things do. This is where, a lot of people will start to feel a little betrayed. They did what they were told, they took their medication, they showed up to therapy, they opened up their wounds, they talked about it, they didn't even know how to close those old wounds again. And when they're still struggling years later, they start asking, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. What usually happened is this: you were taught how to understand your pain, but not how to interrupt that pattern, that nervous system break in real time. So understanding explains that fire. Regulation teaches you how not to get burned by that fire. When someone is normally told this is who you are, but never shown how change actually happens, the brain learns how to accept those labels, not how to grow past it. And that's why you'll also see like a lot of people who, and I know I've ran into this with my own life experience, where they've dealt with depression and they are terrified to go see a therapist because, they've accepted the fact that they're on therapy, they don't want medication, but sometimes, that's the therapist, they only want to, give them medication. And that's because they're living with that label. They're not being taught how to move past those things. And that's why you'll hear people say things like, especially people in main source social media are big. I've seen this on a couple things, and I won't point out people, but they know who they are. You'll hear certain influential people sit there and say, I don't believe in depression, or I don't believe in X, Y, and Z. And here's what, they're trying to say is they're not denying that that level of pain is real. They're just reacting to a system that names the problem but never shows people what to do about it. They understand that the pain is real, that patterns are real. What people are pushing back against is the idea that those patterns are permanent. Those patterns are not permanent. I personally didn't start seeing real change until I stopped asking why I was like this, and started noticing, when my body, felt threatened, it went straight into warrior mode. I was incredibly hyper-focused. I was unyielding and unwilling to want to listen to anyone else. I came armed with facts to disagreements and arguments. I came armed with facts and receipts, and I was absolutely ready to dominate the moment so I wouldn't be dominated by the moment itself. And once I started to see that inside of me, that pattern inside of me, I stopped treating it like some sort of strength that I had or some sort of flaw that I had, and started recognizing it as, my nervous system trying to protect me. And I used to think regulation meant becoming passive, like I was supposed to lose that edge of me. But what I did learn is this: unregulated strength burns everything around it, and that's exactly what I would do. I would burn everything that's around me. Regulated strength chooses when to move, and that's a hard thing to discern. That changed how I saw, the power that I have entirely different. And it wasn't about trying harder, it was about working at the right levels. You don't regulate the trauma by understanding it. You regulate it by teaching your body something new in real time. You take that small pause before reacting. That's the step that a lot of people never get shown. Real change doesn't look incredibly dramatic. It doesn't feel like a massive breakthrough. Most of the times it honestly feels incredibly boring, frustrating, anticlimactic, if you will. And, change happens when you start noticing your body tighten and you don't try to explain it away. You pause before reacting, even though you could justify your reactions. You feel that urge to defend, control, or shut down, but you don't do that. You don't act on that impulse, you don't act on that level of control, and you don't shut down. And that's not having weakness. That's retraining your nervous system that, your nervous system learned how to survive earlier in an earlier part of life. And the reason this part doesn't get talked about enough is because it doesn't sell that hope. It doesn't sell hope of like, oh, well, this medication will fix you or therapy will make you feel empowered. It sells a level of responsibility because it's an individual responsibility to be able to practice this by yourself. So if you're watching any of this and you're thinking, I've done everything that I was told and I still feel stuck, I want you to hear this part clearly, that you may not be broken. You may just be working at the wrong level. You don't need a new identity, and you don't need a stronger diagnosis. And you definitely don't necessarily need even more tools. You just need repetition at the level of the nervous system. And that work is more quieter than what people expect. But it's also the only kind that actually truly lasts inside of yourself. So ask yourself this: are you waiting for something to fix you? Or are you learning how to work with the system you actually have? If this hit, make sure you subscribe to Spill the Tea. This channel is about understanding what's really going on beneath the behavior, without any kind of shame and without any bullshit. My book, A Child Called Home, goes deeper into where these patterns start and how they start to show up later in life. And if you want something you can work through on your own, check out my guide. It's Found It at the Right Time. It's in the link below on Gumroad. It's there to help you. It's not something there that you have to follow by. And I hope that I get to see everyone in the next one. Thanks, guys. And I hope you guys have a great night. Bye.